Okay, so here it is, 6th grade. This is the fastest 6 minutes in history. What brings us to World War II. So, here we go. Germany. Germany lost in World War I. As a punishment, right, Germany was required to pay a ton of money to help offset the destruction caused by the war. This would make Germany incredibly poor. Germany also wasn't allowed to build up an army, so this made them incredibly vulnerable to other nations and incredibly angry. At this time, a young man who fought in World War I named Adolf Hitler was in prison. While he was in prison, he wrote a book titled Mein Kampf. Now in English, Mein Kampf means my struggle. In this book, Hitler outlined the problems with Germany. And one of those problems, he said, was the Jewish people. You see, Hitler believed that there was a master race and that other races should be slaves. After getting out of prison, Hitler started the Nazi Party. The Nazi Party grew in popularity. We already said it. The Germans were frustrated. All right, they were angry. They were poor. A chocolate bar that cost a nickel in America back then cost $150,000 in Germany. True story. And the Germans had lost everything, and they wanted somebody to blame. Well, they followed Hitler because Hitler gave them somebody to blame, the Jewish people. Now this is when Germany made a huge mistake. You see, Hitler was very persuasive. He was a great public speaker. I mean, just listen to him for a second.
Wir haben nicht ihre Kolonien. Wir haben nicht all die Möglichkeiten internationaler Weltverbindungen, die diesen Staaten und Völkern.
Germany's Congress gave complete power to Hitler, and then nobody could stop him. He began discriminating big time against the Jews. He closed their businesses, he fired them from their jobs, he took their houses, took their possessions, and sometimes took their families. Think about the movie The Grinch, the part where the Grinch, not the Jim Carrey Grinch, but the cartoon Grinch, okay? The part where the Grinch goes down to Whoville and takes the Christmas tree, all the presents, all their food, takes everything from the Whos, okay? Well, Hitler was just like that, except not with the Whos, but with the Jews. And Hitler took everything from them. He even began shipping them off to camps where they would be starved and housed in horrible conditions. And he treated them like they weren't even people. Now there were other people still in Germany. And what did Hitler do with them? He brainwashed them. You see, Hitler tried to convince everybody that the Jews were the source of Germany's problems. He also tried to convince the Germans that they were better than everybody else and should rule them all. He even enlisted school-aged children like yourself. And they were called the Hitler Youth. Now some of the youth joined Hitler because they or their families believed in him. Many joined to avoid being punished. If you were a guy and lived back then in Germany, that would be you. So what about if you didn't join? Say Hamza or Dougie or Camden or Kyle. You live back then and you don't want to join. Well, you could get kicked out of school, you could be imprisoned, you could be sent to a concentration camp, or you could be killed. Now Hitler just didn't want to eliminate the Jews, but wanted to take over the entire world. And his first major stop would be Poland. Alright, so the Soviet Union was being ruled by Joseph Stalin, and he was really a pretty terrible guy. Okay, some of you know that he fought alongside the United States during World War II, and that's true, but only after he switched sides, because at first he sided with Hitler and Germany. So let's talk about how terrible Stalin was, because he was really terrible. Okay, to help build the Soviet Union as a military power, Stalin sacrificed agriculture and farming, leading to a massive famine throughout the country where a lot of his people starved to death. Say Susie or Jackie or Ben or Allie Pete, you live in Soviet Union and you don't agree with what Stalin is doing? Well, you're pretty much as good as dead. Stalin formed a group and they were called the Secret Police, and they tried to convince the citizens to take sides with Stalin. Now if you chose not to, you were killed. Sometimes the Secret Police wouldn't even give you a chance to choose. They would just kill you in the hopes to influence your family or your neighbors out of fear to take sides with Stalin. Now Stalin was excited about expanding the Soviet Union as well. So excited that he made a peace agreement with Adolf Hitler not to fight against him. And the two agreed to divide Poland in half after Hitler would capture it. Hideki Tojo. Alright, here's a story about Hideki Tojo. He became the premier of Japan. And it's pretty much the ruler, the prime minister, whatever you want to think about. And he was a military guy, alright? So I don't know if you've ever seen Japan. Well, you have now because right here, this is a picture of it, but it's pretty small. If you think about a beach ball being the size of the world, then a mini marshmallow is about the size of Japan. And Hideki Tojo was tired of ruling a mini marshmallow. He felt that Japan needed to expand, so expand he did. He started by attacking Manchuria, a Chinese province. About 6 years later, he began to occupy eastern China, and his goal was to rule the entire area of Eastern Asia. Italy won World War I, so you would think they'd be happy, right? Wrong. You see, Italy didn't feel like they were given enough by the Treaty of Versailles, which is what ended World War I. When the Depression hit, they got mad, especially Benito Mussolini. You see, Benito, he was the leader of the fascist party. His rule was similar to that of Hitler and the Nazis. So let's pretend that Alicia and Connor are Italians, and they don't agree with Mussolini. Well, you would either be put in jail or killed. You see, Mussolini took complete control of Italy. He ended elections and served as a brutal dictator. Italy began their expanse by going into Africa, conquering nations like Ethiopia, who were completely helpless. The Italians used tanks and guns to fight against the Ethiopians, who had spears and sticks. Real fair fight, Mussolini. Real fair. So let's recap. Okay, we got Stalin, who's terrible. We got Mussolini, who's awful. We got Tojo, who's horrible. And Hitler, who's more horrible. All of them wanted more power and more land, so that's what they went after. They cared about their power, but not about their people. But there were some countries that weren't okay with this, and they were the democratic nations. We're talking about France, we're talking about Great Britain, and eventually the United States. And eventually they got tired of this and decided to stop them. And that's what brings us to World War II.